Sometime last year, there were ratings which came out which said that India's GDP growth was not going to be what many in India had said that it would be. But now there's a fresh set of analysis. Analysis not just from within the country, but outside the country as well. That despite demonetization, despite other moves, India's GDP growth is very positive. It's actually well above 7%. It's between 7.1 and 7.4%. And if this rate of momentum is maintained going into, let's say, 2018, 2019, it's not inconceivable that we would cross 8% GDP growth. The Finance Minister, Arun Jaitley, is here in Yokohama, Japan, at the 50th annual meet of the Asian Development Bank. He joins us now. You're also Governor, sir, of the ADB representing India. So there was all this talk about demonetization and the impact that it was going to take on GDP growth, but the numbers coming out now, internationally accepted numbers, are that 7.4% very realistic and going up.
You see, when demonetization led to a currency squeeze for a couple of months, it is quite understandable that for a quarter or 2 quarters some impact could be felt. But in the long run, moves like demonetization and the GST are going to add to India's GDP. Demonetization put a large amount of unaccounted cash into the banking system. It's a move towards greater digitization. It's a move towards lesser cash. Now, it will still take a long time before it's achieved, but we've started moving that way. Prior to 8th of November, there was not even a debate in this country.
Yeah.
This also means larger number of people now paying taxes. For instance, the post-demonetization impact, the initial reports which have come in is that you've had about 90 to 95 lakh new taxpayers added to it in a country which only had 3.34 crore people filing a tax return. And therefore 90 to 95 lakhs is a very large addition taking place in a single year. So you'll have a larger tax base. So overall, the integration of the informal with the formal economy will expand India's GDP. Similarly, the GST will also expand. I have not the least doubt that even in the environment of a global slowdown, India would maintain its position as the fastest growing among the major economies in the world. For the last 3 years we've been that. That will be something above 7%. And if the global tailwinds become supportive, then obviously your exports start moving up, more trade increases, and therefore this could add to India's GDP further. The other silver lining which appears is that global slowdown, which had brought down the global growth rate to about 3.1%, I think the curve has moved. And this year it's likely to be 3.4 and probably slightly more next year.
Okay.
So if the global growth curve also starts moving and aiding the whole process of structural reforms going on in India, we certainly can hope for a much higher GDP.
Arundhati Bhattacharya told me something fascinating yesterday. She said that at the moment there is still a 300% rise in debit card usage for SBI, more than what it was before demonetization started. In other words, the sense that, look, money has come into the bank, it's going to go back out of the bank in cash has not happened. People are transacting much more on debit card.
See, let's clear. India was essentially a cash-based economy. I recently met the minister from Sweden, the finance minister from Sweden, and they said almost nobody uses cash. So what happens if you go and pay cash at a counter? You don't get change back. But the cash is so inadequate in those societies. That's what I was told. Now, we are far away from that position. In India, my first reaction after demonetization was that the old normal is over. That you can just deal only in cash. Every property transaction will have 2 colors of money to be given.
So what is the new normal?
The new norm is that you are now moving toward, it's dangerous to deal too much in cash. It's dangerous to store cash. You're seeing the consequence. Every day reports come in on how government agencies have been getting hold of people. And with the technology advancements taking place and the sources of information which the government gets, I think those who deal substantially in cash and unaccounted cash will not be safe. And therefore, the new normal is a movement towards a greater digitized economy, where whether it's going to be debit card, or it's going to be the RuPay card, or it's going to be the Bhim app, or it's going to be those Aadhaar-based payments. I think the banking transactions are going to be in the forefront.
Okay. Yesterday we had a fairly landmark ordinance going through. You're going to be taking action now against assets which aren't producing, loan defaulters and the like. There are willful defaulters and they're defaulters. Are you going to go after the big defaulters? The biggest defaulters might be smaller in number as willful defaulters.
Let me give you the entire context of this ordinance. In the last 3 years, there have been a series of economic reforms, one after the other, which we've been successfully able to pioneer. But there is one big challenge which remains, and that's the state of the banks. And the problem of the banks was these stressed assets. These are old loans given to some companies during the boom period.
Yes.
That's pre-2011, pre-2012. And now only the interest is mounting, and since they are not able to service those loans, the size of the NPA itself increases because of interest adding on. That's the addition which is taking place. Now the RBI had been coming out with the one policy after another, the CDR, the SDR, the S4A, and wanting the banks themselves and through the Joint Lenders Forum to resolve the issues. It hasn't moved much. You haven't seen resolution of those stressed assets. And therefore, we must be realistic in introspecting and realizing as to where the problem is. And a precipitative action, therefore, in that regard is required. Now, it's not a widespread problem. It's a problem of the top 20, 30, 40 accounts. And therefore, you need the resolution. Either these people bring in joint venture partners, or they bring in a new management. You
Should
can't
banks take a little bit of losses as well?
You see,
trimming
I
as
tell
it
you,
were?
in a commercial world, decisions which are commercially viable and commercially oriented are always taken. And these are independent decisions by the banking institutions. My own understanding is that in the context of the public sector banks, the senior management is also deterred by the fact that once you take these decisions, which are commercially oriented and maybe absolutely bona fide in the larger interest of the bank itself, tomorrow the accountability norms in this country are also unrealistic. Officials have been hauled up for taking decisions which are completely bona fide. And therefore you need a new paradigm, a new regime altogether as to how to deal with it. And therefore today we have the insolvency mechanism in place, the board has started functioning. So the RBI, along with the banks, will prepare a list of these major defaulters. It's no secret, state secret, we know who they are. The RBI has already been empowered by a notification yesterday after the ordinance to even direct the banks to initiate an insolvency proceeding against X or Y.
Yes.
They can also set up committees in relation to the Joint Lenders Forum and others, which gives a comfort level to the banks. So if 10 banks sit together and say, well, this is the extent of, this is the manner in which we are going to resolve this particular problem, the RBI oversight mechanism also simultaneously approves it. Now, these are all empowerments which we have given. Whether how much it is used is for the RBI's discretion, because they know the banking better than most of us. And therefore, it's a new experiment which is being tried so that we can have a resolution. At the end of the day, for a country which has brought in umpteen kind of reforms in the last few years.
This has not been an area where we've done
This has not been an area which we've been able to tackle, and therefore we have to give it a try.
So what you just mentioned, the top 20 or 30 accounts, you are going to, or the government or the RBI is going to, you believe, go after the top 20 or 30 defaulters
and find
in a
out,
finite period of time. And we're looking at action.
According to me, going after, I think, is a journalistic phrase.
Yes.
The correct phrase is they're going to try and resolve those accounts. Now, a resolution of that account may require a commercial decision or a discretion, and therefore you'll have layers which give a comfort level to the entire banking system. And under the eye of the RBI, these mechanisms could function more efficiently and perhaps more confidently.
Okay. Just a couple of more questions on the economy. Firstly, the GST rollout. No more hurdles, July 1st rollout, no surprises in the rates?
You see, July looks likely. Looks likely because already state after state is approving the state GST law now. And every state is going to approve it, I think, in the month of May itself. So by the end of May, you will have the central laws have all been approved, the constitutional amendment has been approved, the state laws would have been approved, the rules have all been made public. So no, it's not a matter of surprise. Now the rate fitment is to take place, and we are meeting on the 18th and 19th of this month. Our officers are working on the rates itself, and no surprise, because we've said that in the first round, rather than take anyone by surprise, you take the existing level of taxation, you take what is the excise, what is the VAT, and what are the state taxes, you add them and fit them closest to the bracket. My own impression is that with regard to products and commodities and goods,
yes,
because there will be no tax on tax, so there will be no cascading effect. So it may come down a little, service tax may increase a little. So that's the balancing act which will have to be done in the initial stages, so that the revenue neutral rate, the quantum of taxes, remains the same.
It's been suggested in just the last recent while that in order to expand your tax base, a decision has to be taken, and ultimately it will be a political decision, to tax farmers who are richer. A mechanism has to be found whereby those who are richer need to be taxed.
I think experts,
irrespective of who they are.
Experts have been expressing this view, but I don't think this is possible in this country.
It's too politically sensitive an issue.
You see, for two reasons. A, it's not a central subject, it's a state subject.
Yes.
So under the Constitution, the central government is not even empowered. Now, even as far as the states are concerned, the states can straight away see the kind of stress in the agriculture sector. And I think this is hardly the time to even throw up this whole idea when you see agriculture under such stress. And when you are speaking in terms of richer farmers and bigger farmers, look at the size of the land holdings in India. We want to just get into a diversionary debate where the size of the so-called richer farmers would hardly be even 1%. Most of the farmers in this country need support from the government. So in terms of irrigation, in terms of electricity, in terms of other support, minimum support price, the farmers are being assisted in order to sustain. And in a sector which is stressed, I hardly think this is the time to have a debate of this kind.
So I just wanted to ask you one or two questions. You are, of course, Defence Minister now. How you manage time between this, the North Block and the South Block, only you know. But we've seen this very unfortunate incident which has taken place, the mutilation of our Indian soldiers. Even after our surgical strikes took place last year in October and November, there were these dreadful incidents that took place. What can we do to stop this cycle? Because it's this nemesis that keeps returning.
You see, I wish one party alone could stop it. As far as the Indian armed forces are concerned, they are a very disciplined armed force. They are a highly professional armed force. We thought that Pakistan got the message, particularly when the surgical strikes took place, that Indian army is capable of responding, and responding in a very effective manner, which they did. An incident like this, it's clear that within the Indian territory, there is a protective fire which is given by the Pakistani army, and then somebody comes in, and these two people, in fact there were three of them, one of them has been injured, who's given a whole account, and these two people are first killed, and then of course bodies are mutilated. I've always said that every Indian, and I'm probably the first person to in that crowd, I have full confidence in the Indian Army, that the Indian Army will take whatever appropriate action is needed in the matter. The Army Chief has said so. And beyond that, we must learn to trust our Army.
Yeah.
Their record has been exemplary. And therefore, what they will decide and what they'll do, we leave it to them.
And at their own time. I mean, we can't clamor for it in any...
See, this is not, these are not issues which can be determined in the course of a media discussion or a public debate. This has to be left to a military strategy, and the army decides what to do. And
so one of the problems which a lot of people would say with Pakistan is that they've been in a state of denial from the time of Kargil onwards. They denied that they had soldiers who crossed over during Kargil. We hit them very hard after the mutilation in October and November. We hit them extremely hard in various posts along the line of control. They never accepted the loss of lives on their side. They never accepted, they never even said anything about the extent of damage they'd suffered. So they rely on silence as being some sort of a bizarre mechanism. We rely on credibility. If we lose soldiers, we say so.
You see,
how do you fight this as a strategy?
You see, Pakistan has been in denial all these years. And nobody knows who's in control. Now, in between, we were being told the civilian governments are back. But then again, with the recent developments, one is not sure as to who's in control of that state. And therefore, who engineered what action? This remains always a big question mark. But the fact that by disowning your own dead bodies or by disowning an incident which has taken place, you don't change the reality. I think if you look at the rest of the world, the way it's moving, people in countries have become more aspirational. Even in India, we suffer so many crises, natural calamities, we've seen wars. But the level of resilience that you've had in India is that people are becoming more aspirational and in fact more impatient. So they want to see the results, they want to see growth. And there has been, over the last 2 decades, a sudden change of even the political idiom as far as the country is concerned. The size of the middle class is expanding. There is an aspirational class behind the middle class which is aspiring to move up. The poorer people are becoming impatient. And that's what forcing decisions on governments and politicians in this country. Now, if you look at all these difficult political decisions, it is this force of public opinion that almost every decision eventually in Parliament is unanimous. So whether it is the insolvency or the GST, everybody then has to support it because you have a public to answer to. Unfortunately, that's not happening in that country. And therefore, to have this kind of environment in a country and allow your armed forces to just live in denial after an incident like this, I don't think in today's world of communication this really can work.
One final question to you. You are in Japan now. Japan is not just one of our largest economic partners, it's also one of our most important strategic partners. And a lot of their strategic concerns are similar to our strategic concerns. In the recent past, at a naval commanders meeting, I think you had spoken about extra-regional presence, an extra-regional presence in the Indian Ocean region. You would have been referring to the Chinese Navy. They operate there regularly. Do you believe that India and Japan need to ally more strongly to counter this?
Our armed forces, and certainly Navy is a very important armed force, has a very important diplomatic role also.
Yes.
And therefore, Japan is an old trusted friend of India. Japan, in terms of economic cooperation and economic development in India, has had a very significant role. So if you look at today, your Western Corridor is being supported by Japan. The bullet train is being supported by Japan. The cross-harbour link, which we cleared recently in Mumbai, which has changed the quality of life in Mumbai, is being supported by Japan, let alone many, many smaller projects. And I think strategically also we have a lot in common. And therefore, obviously our forces are always in joint exercises and so on. they have a very important role to play with some of the friendly countries, and that will continue.
All right. Well, Mr. Jaitley, thank you so much for speaking to us. The Finance and Defence Minister, Arun Jaitley, speaking to us about why there is a sense of optimism as far as India's GDP growth is concerned, the look ahead, the prospects of the Indian economy, and also a little bit about our key strategic concerns at this stage.